Hi everybody, I just want to jump straight in and just show you a mixture of solid and soft objects together. So the solid would be the rib cage, solid would be the pelvis, and everything in between would be the softer parts. So we're going to look at how those two solids compress and contract with one another. And do you know what I'm talking about? It will be the rib cage and the pelvis and the stomach region. It will coincide a little bit with the live session I did on Friday night. You can check out that video yourself. That video contained a bit of a rough sort of go through with chopping up cylinders, cones, using line of action and seeing where it was taking us, where I introduced folding fabrics, soft fabrics, and then slicing away harder structures. Now, when it comes to form, there's really only going to be two kind of separate structures. There's going to be something either soft and malleable or something hard and structured. Okay? And the human body is made up of both those things, obviously the skeleton and everything else that's wrapped around it and inside. So what you can start off with, just like the box string balloon method, you can use that as well as a technique. I'm just going to show you some simple shapes. You can start with any shape you like that's relevant to the rib cage. So you can just do a square if you want. Let me know if you can see that. I don't think you can see that. Hang on. Let me just set my camera up so you can zoom in. Okay. Get yourself a blue crayon. It's very easy. It's nice and light. I'm going to draw my box just at an angle, like so. And the moment I start recording, I've got dogs outside barking their head off. Do apologise for that background noise. There's a rib cage. I swear to God, every time I start to record, something kicks off. Anyway, I'll try not to get distracted. So there's your box representing the rib cage. You can create a composition line where the sternum would be, and of course the rib would taper off, but you don't need to do that. And then simply match the perspective, but in this case, maybe create the box going at a different angle like this. This box would be a little bit more shallower, which would be representing the pelvis. Okay. Now if you can do boxes like this in perspective, then you're well on your way. You can start blocking out the human form. This one particularly has quite a long torso, but that doesn't matter. You can work with your advantage to that. Right, so from here on you've got two structured objects, chest and the pelvis. You need to make the connection here, which would be the softer area. Now, this is just a simple line of action. The line of action is this way. Here's the curve. If you want, you can add in some folds here. So obviously there's more compression, just as you imagine. Here's a putty rubber. So obviously, you know, more compression you get, it will start squeezing out that way. You can emphasize that, maybe exaggerate it in this case just to show you. Probably won't be the case, but it depends on whether you've got a character that's got body fat. And then, you know, a bit of a tummy here, comes with the rib cage, quite a long torso. Down here towards the crotch area, you can create a triangle. I usually do a triangle, even if I'm not quite sure which sex it is, whether it's a male or female. Just to help guide me. That'll be the thigh here, buttocks at the back. But you can see where this has taken me, and of course, you know, you can add in further detail from there. So that's simple enough. If you can just do two boxes and two different angles, join them up, and sketch out roughly a torso. Okay, now putting that aside, we can draw the box but at different angles. Let's give it a go. Let's draw it again. This teaches you pretty good ability of drawing simple perspective drawing as well. with those shapes. Draw light in this region because you're going to be drawing over here. Now I'm really going to switch up the perspective of the second box, which will be the pelvis. Okay. I'm going to draw the top of it here. And then down here. Okay. Now this is pretty twisted now. As you can imagine, this would be the sternum, the chest, and down here would be the pelvis. I'll just do a panty line, as you can imagine. You can call it whatever you like. So I now need to join these two up. So what's a good guide to have is to just simply attach these points to what would be around here. So point 1 and point 1 here, and then point 2, and then 2 would be behind here. Okay, so just try to create a nice curve that would join up nicely. Try not to create any sharp angles because there naturally will be a curve. Now you don't want to curve it and just join it up here. That wouldn't naturally happen because the rigid structure of the rib cage is still pulling at this point here, number 2, which is behind the figure. So you have to take that into account. Okay, and then you can see that's the back of the figure. This is the foreground of the figure. And likewise, point 1 here, point 1 there, point 2 is back there, and 2 is here. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so this would then have to then curve and join the one on the other side. So this coincides with the live session I did, which is simply manipulating the form, in this case 2 forms, and join them together, which would make up the chest and the hip. I hope that's straightforward enough for you. That's roughly what I'm thinking when I'm doing any sort of human figure. But it doesn't need to just be on the box level. You can decide doing the same angle. So the line of action is going this way. Okay. Line of action is very important to create a dynamic pose in even both objects and anything organic, like a person or a creature. So we can try to do cylinders if you like. In this case we'll do it in a slightly different perspective. Let me see if that's in frame. I'm always trying to check my phone if it's in frame. Okay. Okay. There's your cylinder. Find the point, center point, which would be the sternum, the chest. Creating those composition lines is always going to reward you later on as you start to chop and change and manipulate it. Okay. Now let's try do another cylinder, but going the opposite direction, like this. This would be the hip area, so this line here and here. So if you notice I've done it slightly different to the one on here, so I'm looking up towards the character and down here, so it's almost as if the person's slightly hunched over, if you can imagine a person as basic as this is. But this is the whole point. We're trying to think ahead of the pose. So we've got a line of action going this way and then this way, so going towards us and going away from us in 2 different angles. Once again, try and join this up. Try to create a natural curve like this, and then split the cylinder into quarters. So now you've got a visible line here, which will then naturally disappear around the back. Do the same, split up. Done it wrong there, haven't I? Sorry. There you go. So when you're splitting up the base of the cylinders, try and center the line here so it all flows. It's the same logic that you do when you're doing 3D modeling. All the topology has to join into quads. If you can, obviously you can have triangles in there, but okay. So naturally, it's going to be, if I just do a little bit of a transparency on this cylinder, it's going to be a line hidden behind here. It's eventually going to, or maybe not. Let's just try it. So this one's actually quite simple. It's not so obvious with cylinders. I suppose what you could do, yeah, okay. You could come halfway here, just to show as an example. Sorry, that was a bit of a problem solving I did right there for you. So the cylinder can be one aspect of giving it a go, but I probably wouldn't consider this as probably the most obvious, most visually understanding sort of shape to use. I would probably keep with the box method. That was just an experiment. If you want to maybe skip this stage, if you want to go for a more complex shape that represents more of the human figure, let's throw in a rib cage. Which is roughly a cylinder in itself. This is probably with the direction why I was going in there. I think it becomes easier actually when you start to add in more detail. So that's the sternum, which is the front of the chest. I can make this a little bit more distinct with the curvature, the tapering of the rib cage, like that. Okay, what we need to do now is draw the hip area. In this case I'll draw it in a different direction. So we'll be going this way. So we've got a center line there, here, center line here. What you could do is just do a pair of Y fronts or underpants, represent the hip. If you struggle, then simply do the box just like it was before. And then you can always add in the pant line. That's the inside. And then try and join these two up. A lot of curve, a lot of twisting going on here. Okay. So there's going to be much more stretching here going on this side, and perhaps more compression on the right side. Like that. With that twist. And you can obviously add in more detail that way. So there's the line of action. Centered. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to go back to that box method again and go straight through the whole process. Let me just move these things out of the way because there's no room. Okay. So again, we'll start with a box, and that, in this case, what I'm going to show is a bit more compression. So I'm going to have box going this way. So the subject is bending over. and the line of action, of course, would be going like this. Okay? So that means I need to draw a box going this direction. Okay. So that means with all things that compress, you got the stretching here, which would be a simple curve, and with the compression, you're going to experience a little bit of push out from those two solid shapes. So imagine my fingers here, the two solids, just like the boxes, and the stomach area is the soft area. So this is simply where we're going with this, and how the belly just sticks out like this. Okay? Depending on how much fat you want to put on your character, that's up to you, but there's going to be some level of compression in the middle. Okay. And we'll do it again with the twist. Draw a box again, any angle you like, just so long as the second box is at a different angle, just to test your abilities to contort the midsection. You might find that you'll draw a box and you'll just realize it's almost impossible to stretch this character, but then this is the whole point. We're just experimenting in our sketchbook. There's a center line. Here's the center line here. See where it takes us. So it's quite a condensed area. The rib cage is really coming down on this now, this soft area. I mean, this might not be anatomically correct, but we're just going to pick up more about how these soft and hard shapes interact with each other, while generally drawing a rough idea of how this could then represent the human body. Bum is the, see, you know what that bit is. It's a bit of fold. There's much more fold going on the left side. It's compressed, and then it's more stretching out there, so there's nothing really to overlap. So the belly button will be around here. Okay. So I'm just creating a little bit of reference of where this would be. See, the shoulders would be here and here. And again, I draw the female body a lot, but here. So it could be a lady sitting down on a chair, leaning over. Okay. Let's try that one again. That's quite interesting. I think once you start drawing like I do, you start to warm up. I get quite light here, and then by this point, get much more fluid. Keep going. Just like in my previous videos where I was just doing loads of gestural drawings of figures. Sometimes you need to warm up, just like when you start the car in the morning, and before you just really start to get going. Let's draw something like this, but in a different angle, so maybe the back. Draw a box going in this direction. Okay, so we're looking this way. Okay, so the curve. So I'm going to draw the back, so the bum's going to be here. So the rib cage is at a profile facing left, and I'm going to draw the hip area where the bum is facing towards us. So maybe try and think ahead about the position you want to put your boxes in. This way I'm gonna taper out the box to make it a little bit more like a hip, particularly a female hip as it widens. So you can see how you can then start slightly tapering in the edges in your favor if you want. I could even taper it out here, so like so. It's up to you. So that's the side. So obviously that would be the breast. Rib cage stops here. So I've got it just like in this demonstration here. I need to join up the points. Try to focus. So point here would line up with point B. So from A to B. There's going to be a lot of stretching here. I'm just going to draw a solid line. Naturally, you wouldn't have a solid line, realistically, if it was a female body. And then here, it would just naturally just join up here. Okay. Shoulder here. Breast area, second shoulder at the back. Let's add in the coccyx or the tail spine. So use the top of the box, create a little triangle. See where this is going. I'll then add in the rest of the bum here. If you want, you can, if you want to add in a bit more structure of the figure, you can leave the box, start drawing in some circles that represents the connection where the hip will be to the thighs. Okay. Of course, the ribs would be around here. Okay. I hope that has some clarity there. And there will be some folds here, some compression. Okay. So if you like, you can add some of that and continue that line going up into the back. Right. I'm having quite a lot of fun doing this actually. I might just do one more. Could I change it up a little? I don't know. I guess if it's a simple formula like that, then there's no need to change it. I can just draw the same thing at different angles. Let's just keep going with it. This also teaches you not only shapes but perspective drawing. There's a rib cage. Going to taper it out a little bit this time. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can twist it a lot if I can. What might help with you, if you want to create a line of action using the sternum, the front, you could decide on where you want the hip to go simply by drawing a line like this. Okay, that way it might help you on the angle at which you draw your second box. In this case it would be like this. So you can see where the center point now splits the box. And we could decide on the perspective. So we're gonna, I don't know, let's, yeah, do something like this. Okay, that should be enough to go on. Right, so we've got the two hard structures. Let's finish off with helping us to draw where the points of interest should be. So we've got point A here. Here's a point, go to here. And the same goes to this. Okay. Draw a little shading here. And there. That just shows you the different angle, sort of the background of either side of the body as we taper out towards the hip bone. Shoulder joints. Okay, I'm now going to just add in some more detail, and then I think after 25 minutes we'll leave it there. I think that should be enough for you to go away with or have a go yourself. I'm going to do a little bit of simple lines here to represent the edge of the rib cage. Okay. Into the breasts. Okay. Carry on. This will be the collarbone or clavicle. Shoulders. Come down to the ribs. Create some folds here. With that compression that we learnt about earlier. Come down here, let's twist the figure. Create hip bone. Come down here to create the V for the groin area. Line it up with the box on both sides, and down towards here the navel will be around here. Okay, and I think I'll leave it there. Okay, and if you want, just like on the previous drawing, you can create some circles. Help guide you where you want your thighs to be. Anyway, it's good fun doing this. In this case I'm drawing the female figure, very rounded figure for that matter. Might be useful especially for like any little superheroes, female characters that you're doing. Yeah. Okay, let me zoom out. Well, there we are. I hope that little demonstration helped. So we went from two rigid structures and softer structure in the middle. So two hard forms and one soft form. Then we try twisting it, making sure that we connect from A to B, the edges or the corners of those boxes to line everything up. Thinking about line of action as well is really helpful. We tried the cylinders. They're a little confusing for me actually doing it that way. You can try it yourself if it might work for you, but it was the transition going from more hard surface objects to more rounded, which is naturally would be the rib cage, which was okay. But I guess you can overlay your drawing to make it more rounded on top of those box shapes. And you can see we create some compression here with some folds of the body fat that you see characters, and there's a bit of a twist going on here again. Fold here. Make sure you're using that sort of Y method as you always see naturally in soft objects, and bit of compression here showing the belly. This is probably more true to my belly when I'm bending over, and finished up with female figure here. And yeah, let me know if that's helped, and please comment. I'm hoping this one will go viral like a couple of the other ones, who knows. But thank you, the channel is growing. I hope to get to 500 subs by Christmas, and it's going to motivate me a hell of a lot more to keep going. And yeah, have a good evening. Okay, there we are then. Thank you for watching that video. If you got through half an hour of that, I'm impressed. I hope all these little tips and tricks and stuff that I show you helps. I'm learning as a teacher on this channel, as well as many other things of recording and using YouTube. And basically I'm trying to help as much as I can for anybody out there who's drawing from the very beginning, or people who are in the middle of their journey so far. And my YouTube channel is growing bit by bit. Thank you everybody so far. Please share if you know anybody that needs my help, that they think they'll be interested in a very honest, raw style of teaching on YouTube, because that's pretty much where I'm going for at the moment. But yeah, like and subscribe, as they usually say, and keep following. Thank you.